there, and tonight we have an incredible show where we're going to get into some truths that even I don't know too much about, and because of that reason, I have with me the original co-host of and not co-creator but co-conspirator.
There we go.
Let's say for Podzilla 1985, Tanner Calvert here with me tonight. My name, of course, Shannon Young. I'm going to be your host. This is a very special episode of I Want to Believe, and Tanner, we have an incredible guest tonight.
Yes, we have Scott Wolter from History H2 and Travel Channel's America Unearthed.
Yes. So, guys, stay tuned for what is going to be an incredible episode. We're going to talk about his new show. We're going to talk, his show that is in its new season after a 4-year hiatus. And we're going to be talking about the Templars. We're going to talk about aliens. We're going to talk about a lot of fascinating stuff. So let's get right into it. Joining us here. You see the nervousness in my voice already. Joining us
stop it.
Here on a very special edition of I Want to Believe. Tanner, we have someone that you reached out to, Tanner, who has been just killing it when it's coming to getting some great guests here on the show. And Tanner, tell us a little bit about who we got here tonight.
Well, tonight we have a gentleman named Scott Wolter. I first came across his work with Holy Grail in America. It's a great documentary from History Channel. And from then, I've just been following almost religiously. It's just been a joy, everything that's happened. And recently, he's come back on air with his TV show, America Unearthed, on Travel Channel.
Yes, and Tanner is super excited to have him here. Scott Wolter, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. When you start bringing up Holy Grail in America, that's 10 years ago now. My gosh.
Yes, I've been following for quite a while.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
It's very interesting to me. I'm a big Travel Channel watcher. I'm a huge fan of the Travel Channel, despite some of the things that I may have said in the past about the most recent version of the Travel Channel. We'll talk about that here in a second. I have questions for you. Now, you started America Unearthed in 2012, I believe, on H2 on 80.
Yep.
And for those of us who the listeners out there who might not be completely familiar with the show, can you give us a little info about yourself and the America Unearthed show?
Sure. Well, I'm a forensic geologist. I was educated, and luckily my profession in geology is a very unique niche of doing laboratory work where we basically do autopsies on concrete and rock. And I've been doing that now. This is my 34th year. I can't believe it's been going on that long. But anyway, back in 2000, the Kensington Runestone came into our lab, and they asked us to do a forensic analysis on it with the hope of trying to age date the inscription from a geological perspective. And I never heard of the runestone at that point. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know about the conspiracy. I didn't know about the so-called forbidden history. And I just did my work, and I did a tombstone study, and it proved that the weathering was hundreds of years old. Therefore, I concluded that it was genuine. And I thought that would be the end of it, but little did I realize that was only the beginning. And here I am, that's 19 years later, and we're still working on the runestone and a whole bunch of other historical mysteries that we investigate on the show. As Tanner pointed out, we did a 2-hour documentary for History Channel, and we filmed it from 2007, and it aired in 2009. But that was basically about my research on the runestone, proving it to be authentic, and that it was the Knights Templar who carved it. And that's what started Holy Grail in America. That did really well. And then we did another one called Who Really Discovered America? And then they said, hey, do you think this could work for a series? And I said, my gosh, there's all kinds of stuff. And America Unearthed was born in 2012.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tanner. I was going to say it's been almost 4 years since the last episodes aired.
Right.
How does it feel being back?
And what happened was we were sailing along, everything was going great, and we were on H2, which was the History Channel affiliate station, and ratings were great. We were the number one show at the time, and they sold H2. I mean, it's like all of a sudden we lost our home, and I think a lot of people thought we had been canceled, but we were never canceled. It was just, the network went away. So that was really strange. And then there was some discussion that we might be renewed on Big History, and that didn't happen, even though I did some TV for them on some other shows. They ended up not renewing America Unearthed because, according to my agent, he said that our show was too smart for history. So that's why we went off the air.
Well, how did the deal with Travel Channel come about?
Well, I don't know all the details. All I know is there was one network executive, Daniel Schwartz, who apparently, liked the show and wanted to bring it to Travel Channel when he heard it was no longer, out there. And he tried apparently for 2 to 3 years to get it, over to Discovery and to Travel, and he was successful. So thank you to Daniel, who's been our network executive for this season.
Yes,
and
bless that man.
He's a great guy, and I think, with his leadership and tutelage, I think the show is as good as it ever was, and probably a little bit better because, it's the same production company, and we've got a lot of experience in how to make the show under our belts. So I think we really didn't miss a beat. It's going quite well, I think.
Now, with the Travel Channel, were you a fan of, were you familiar with the Travel Channel before you guys went over there to it?
To be honest with you, not really, because I don't watch that much TV beyond sports. And, there are certain shows and documentaries that I'll watch, but I'm usually writing or, traveling, doing my own research. So I don't spend as much time watching television, but I've heard a lot, so I know a little bit about it. And obviously I'm paying more attention now.
Well, in the past, so we do this show here. It's called I Want to Believe, and a big focal point of the show is the investigation into the unknown, not just conspiracy theories, paranormal stuff like that. And Travel Channel is one of our favorite channels because they have such an emphasis on stuff like that. But I have been critical of the Travel Channel in the past because they have such an influx of paranormal shows that are geared specifically towards ghost hunting or dealing with ghosts or stuff like that. Your show has definitely dabbled in the unknown, but what are your thoughts on the paranormal? Do you think that your show has a good fit on a channel that is so dedicated to this kind of pseudoscience of the paranormal?
Well, to be honest with you, I have mixed feelings about it. It's not, a real high level of interest for me. But on the other hand, I'm certainly open-minded to the whole idea of paranormal activity, of the possibility of ghosts or spirits and all that.
Right.
I can't say I've had any experience with it. I mean, I've never seen a ghost or anything like that, but that doesn't mean they don't exist and that there isn't something valid there. I simply don't know. And I know there's a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that really enjoy that type of programming and those types of investigations. So, I'm not going to pass judgment on something just because it's not my level of interest. I'm sure there's plenty of things that I like that a lot of people have no interest in. So, but look, investigating the unknown in a broad sense, is really what that is. And that's what we do. It may not be the same exact subject matter, but it's really the same thing. You're investigating something that's unknown, trying to get to the bottom of it. And that's exactly what I do. I do it in my job and I do it on the show. So, I'm not going to criticize them for that. And if they think it's a good fit and people like the show, I really don't care what they watch. They could, whatever people like, that's up to them.
Well, Travel Channel, they have so many, it's a wide range of shows, and they have a lot of great hosts on there, including yourself. I'm a big fan of Zach Bagans. Josh Gates has been doing, world traveling, investigating stuff as well, and I'm such a fan of that stuff. And I love that your show presents kind of a very intelligent look at some of these mysteries and these theories. But I am curious, and I have to know, and if you can't say for sure, I understand, but I have to ask, has there been any pressure from the Travel Channel specifically to kind of broaden the scope of your show to include more paranormal elements, or are they pretty much just giving you free reign to do what you want?
They haven't said one thing that I've heard to me or to the production company about, we want you to do this type of programming. And in fact, I can tell you, you won't see anything like that this season. And, fortunately, if ratings are good and we get another season, obviously we have to sort of think about a little bit, if we do get another season, what are some of the ideas we'd like to pursue? And we're always very careful about that, because you don't want to jinx yourself,
Right.
But you also have to be prepared. And I can tell you that to my knowledge, there has been no discussion of anything like that. And quite frankly, I don't know why they would, because it just doesn't fit into my wheelhouse really at all.
Right.
As far as my background, my expertise. But, on the other hand, will you see something about Bigfoot? Yeah. Will you see something about aliens? Absolutely, including tomorrow night. But having said that, it's not going to be investigations that are anything like you've seen before. We always do and always will bring a hard scientific slant to these investigations, because that's what I do. And, so we're always going to have a serious scientific element to all these investigations. But the one thing I will say that I'm actually enjoying a little bit is, before they kind of played me out to be, this hard ass, can I swear?
Yeah. On this show, you can, yeah.
Okay, well, they made me out to be kind of a hard ass, by the book investigator. And I think this season, a little more of my personality comes out, because I'm not that way all the time. I mean, I'm like anybody else, man. I'm easy to get along with until you start, jacking me around. And,
right.
That's happened a few times in some of the episodes where I've had somebody that, has been, a jerk. And, if you're going to give it to me, you're going to get it back. I mean, I'm not afraid to push back on people if they do stupid things. And that happens occasionally. But at the same time, we don't want to make people look bad. Our job isn't to, get ratings at the expense of our guests. We would never do that. We always treat people with respect. And, until they cross a certain line. And even then, we try to tone it back into edit room. But there have been some times when people have been, they deserve to get slapped,
Yeah. One time specifically, I can remember in an episode, I believe it was the Roanoke episode that you had done. You had there was a gentleman there right at the end of the episode who was just refusing to give an inch of anything. And
well, the guy had his mind made up on something, and I was trying to have, a cordial discussion with him, but he just had this attitude and this completely unbending position and dismissive attitude towards anything that I was trying to talk to him about, and it just pissed me off. And
absolutely.
I didn't lose it, but I got into his grill pretty hard, and you could feel the tension, and it was 100% real. But I always want to try to keep my calm and not lose my composure. But you know how it is. Sometimes somebody sets you off, and you can't help yourself.
Oh yeah, I'm also a professional wrestler. We deal with that quite a bit.
Oh gee, does that come up occasionally?
Occasionally, yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of testosterone.
Well, and I'm sure some of it is a little bit tongue in cheek, but there are times people just push the wrong button, and it's hard not to go off. And I suppose in your business, once in a while, you do. So,
and I'm Irish,
hey, more power to you, man. If they cross that line, sometimes they need to be taught some manners, right?
Absolutely. So on the Roanoke topic, because there was a few episodes we wanted to kind of talk about and go into.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you followed up any more on the Roanoke mystery?
We haven't, and I really would like to, because it's been so long since I watched it. I'll have to ask you guys, but when I was in that room and I looked at all those stones that had been found that were just dismissed out of hand without really any investigation, certainly no forensic investigation by a geologist, my God, weathering on a rock. Mm-hmm. Last thing we do is call a geologist, right? And, I was just was really surprised, and I've seen this many times before, at the dismissive nature of people that are supposedly scientists, right? Like archaeologists and historians and you know, people that you would, I guess I just assumed would have a different attitude. Now, I'm not talking about every archaeologist or every historian or every anthropologist or whoever it is that I run into that sometimes I don't think are handling things quite the way that they should. But, you know, some of them, I'm like, really? You're just going to dismiss these? You're really not curious at all? I mean, where's the intellectual curiosity? And how about giving these things a fair shake before you just throw them out? They could be fake. They could be complete garbage. But I have to say that, you know, I took a brief look at them. I liked what I saw, and I think they demand further investigation.
That's one of my frustrations. You know, we've been doing this particular show, I want to believe, for around 2 years now, I think, and I've been one of those people that's been fascinated by just looking out into the unknown and trying to figure out what we don't already know. And one of my biggest frustrations that I've gotten from looking into this is the dismissal on so many levels of not just the paranormal, not just, you know, UFOs and possible stuff like that, but science in general. Just they're so dismissive of theories and stuff that hasn't been proven and seems outlandish. But to me, I feel like so many things that are outlandish are only outlandish because we don't know how to study them right now. And that in the future there could be ways that we could study it, and stuff that seems like it's crazy right now will one day just kind of be fact.
Well, I really have a big problem with people that label things crazy or pseudoscience or, you know, I mean, that really gets into what I think is a dangerous area because, I mean, let's face it, when you start to apply labels to people, I mean, this, you know, that are demeaning or derogatory, this just allows people and justifies persecution. I mean, this is an age-old technique that humans have been using on other you know, people and races and ethnic groups, and it's just bullshit. I mean, it's, you know, and they do the same thing to me all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been called a pseudoscientist, and I'm like, really? I mean, I run a material forensic laboratory for 34 years. I'm a licensed professional. I was assigned to the Pentagon to investigate all the fire damage concrete after 9/11 by the government, but I can't look at a rock. All of a sudden, I've been a pseudoscientist. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? It's just a, you know, but again, it's the age-old technique. You know, I'd say to people all the time, if you got a problem with the Kensington Runestone or you have a question, ask me. Ask me specific questions. Don't attack me, because if you can't attack the evidence, what's the next best thing? Attack the expert, right? Yeah. Because if you undermine their credibility, you undermine the Runestone's credibility, and that's BS too. So, I've dealt with it for a long time, and it's not professional. It's just, yeah, that's not how you win an argument. And like I said, I'm easy to get along with. Ask me questions, I'll help you understand. But that's not what I get in many cases. It's just they don't like the answer, so they attack you.
Okay, so on the topic of the Kensington Runestone, since we're bringing it up, can you give like a little short history of the stone itself?
Yeah, well, the history was found by a Swedish immigrant farmer. His name was Olof Oman, and he was clearing trees on his roughly 100-acre parcel of property back in 1898 in preparation for farming. And he and his two sons, oldest sons, were clearing trees, and they had this, according to 12 witnesses, 25 to 30-year-old aspen tree, and they cut off the roots around the base of the tree, and then they used a winch to tip it over, and this would pull the stump out at the same time, which was brilliant. But as they did this and the tree fell, the roots were still wrapped around this 202-pound stone that was pretty much directly underneath the tree, and it pulled it out of the ground. And of course, the three of them looked at this thing, and at first they thought it was an Indian almanac, and within a few days they realized it was a long inscription carved in Scandinavian runes. And of course, it's been debated for over 120 years now, its authenticity. And At first it was dismissed, then it was considered authentic, then it was dismissed again, then it was authentic, then it was dismissed. Then I came along and worked with Dick Nielsen, and we wrote a book, and the two of us found, really answered all the questions that were left. And despite what you read on the internet, the conclusion as it stands today, this is absolutely 100% authentic. It was carved and left as a land claim by the Knights Templar after the put down of the Templar Order in 1307. The date of the stone is 1362. The medieval Templars passed the obligation on to modern Freemasonry. As you may or may not know, all of our founding fathers, all of them, were Freemasons. They were also Knights Templar. A lot of people don't realize that. And they picked up the mantle and founded what is now known as the United States of America. And if you look at some of the main tenets that we lionize in this country, one of them is freedom from the tyrannies of the monarchs of Europe. Last I checked, in 1776, we fought a war against the British, right?
Yep.
And the King of England. So and also the Templars were persecuted not only by the monarchs of Europe, but by the Roman Catholic Church. And that is one of the reasons why we have freedom of religion in this country. We are not a Christian country, which if you watch the news today, you would think. We are not. And so this is the story that the world needs to know, that our people in this country need to be reminded of. Now, our founding fathers didn't bring up the runestone, but they knew all about the Templars, and that this was the sanctuary that they wanted to establish where they could be free, practice liberty, and, the rights for all men, for all people, regardless of race, creed, color, whatever. But that's the Kensington runestone. That's the story that has never been told, and that's what we're going to make sure people know. And
me personally, just hearing the story with Holy Grail in America, everything seems 100% authentic. I'm a firm believer of this stuff now, and I think the problem you're running, you and anybody else who studies, the unknown runs into is people who are fighting against you. It doesn't fit their narrative.
Exactly.
So it can be really aggravating, and I applaud you for the work you do. Just from the pushback that you get.
And I appreciate that. But, look, I'm all done arguing with these donkeys. I mean, look, if you want to talk about the evidence, you want to have a serious, intelligent discussion, I'm happy to do that. But if all you're going to do is criticize because you don't like the answer, that's your problem, not mine. And, it's sad because, and think about this just for a second, okay? This is how crazy this stuff is. Right now, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm saying it because it's simply a fact. My fourth book that is primarily about the Kensington runestone is at the printer right now. And in the world today, I am probably the world's leading expert on the Kensington runestone that's walking the planet today, okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
But if you Google Kensington runestone on Wikipedia, you will not see my name. You will not see any of my books, any of my papers, nothing. I have been sanitized from Wikipedia, and it's not just on the Kensington runestone. It's a lot of other artifacts that really fall into the same category. I have been erased. Now, you tell me why that is.
I wish I could.
Yeah, it's a little unexpected. I didn't know that. It almost seems like a conspiracy against you.
Well, I have, I've gone on to my own site to try to correct some factual errors that are on there currently now. I can't think of what they are, but just basic errors about, well, the stone was used as a doorstep. No, it wasn't. It was never used as a doorstep. We have an interview where one of the two sons that was there that day said the story goes that it was used as a doorstep. It never was. And also, Newton Winchell wrote in his field notebook when he went and visited Olaf Ullman and his farm in 1909, and he says in there it was never used as a doorstep because that was the rumor back then. Now, that rumor is false, and it's still on. I mean, I haven't been to the site now for probably a year and a half, but last I checked, that factual error is still there. That is not true. So, but they wouldn't let me correct it.
Yeah, that's
that's
the unfortunate side of Wikipedia now.
I'm not trying to beef up my resume. I'm not trying to aggrandize myself. I'm trying to get the facts straight. Don't you want it straight? Apparently not.
Yeah, that is definitely the problem with Wikipedia nowadays.
Or the internet in general.
Yeah, in general, yes. But especially with Wikipedia because they have certain people that will be given permission to update certain pages, and no one can go in there and fix things now. But then these people have no expertise in what they're updating. So that's the problem you run into, getting improper facts there.
Well, I mean, it's worse than that, too. I mean, I know who the person is that squats that in other sites, and he's just against any pre-Columbian, positive pre-Columbian contact of any kind.
That's sad.
And it's just, and they use excuse, well, it's not a scholarly, peer-reviewed paper. No, it's a professionally peer-reviewed paper, and I'm a licensed professional, and I'm held accountable for the work I do. I could lose my job if I did something stupid or unethical, but yet academics sit around and talk about it amongst each other, and if they like the guy, they give him a good review. If they don't, I mean, this is the kind of crap that goes on because people have told me, and they have been warned, you better not pursue this, this thesis paper. You will never get a job in this industry. I have heard that multiple times. But yet these are the people that are criticizing me. I mean, it's laughable, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So moving on from that topic, I don't want to get you too worked up, but I understand completely.
Well, I'm curious. Looking over, I haven't seen every episode. I'm ashamed to say, but
I've just recently got him into it.
He has, yeah. I definitely err more on the paranormal side of things. Which
that's fine.
Which again, Travel Channel is great for me and also terrible for me because there's so many shows dedicated to it of varying degrees of I don't know if I can buy that. But your show, so many fascinating topics, everything from the Templars, the Bible, Bigfoot even. Where do these ideas come from? Is this stuff that you are personally invested in that you want to study? Do you have a team that kind of puts them together and you go from there? How does that come about?
Well, you know what? It's a nice blend because, the network has their suggestions and, of course, what they want. Usually you'll go. The committee films, the production company, who does a really great job of making me look way better than I am and way smarter than I am. They come up with ideas, and I come up with ideas. And, I think there's a little bit of give and take. And, they give us a little bit of all three. So there is a collaborative effort here, and it works out pretty nice. And, things like Bigfoot and, the alien stuff, although the alien episode you're going to see tomorrow night was actually my idea. And you'll see why. I think you'll be surprised when you watch the episode. It's one of my favorite episodes. But when it comes to topics like that really are not in my wheelhouse, at first I remember I said when I first did this show back in 2012, I'm never going to do a show on Bigfoot. Well, now I'm going to have done 2 at the end of this season. But, in all seriousness, what I thought about was, a lot of the stuff that I do is controversial, right? They talk about Jesus and Mary Magdalene, the Telpiat tomb, and the Templars. To some people, that's a stretch, right? And I ask people to be open-minded about the things that I think are important. I guess turnabout's fair play. So the same goes for me. I guess I have to be open-minded and because I don't have all the answers. I don't know if Bigfoot exists. I don't know if aliens are out there, but is it a legitimate thing to look into? Absolutely.
Well, out of all the ones that you've done, I'm kind of curious, what are you most, maybe the Kensington Runestone, what are you most interested in? Like, what has captured your attention the most? Aside from that, so let's put that on the back burner. Other than that one, which one have you been the most fascinated with?
Well, I have to say this particular season, there are at least 5 or 6 episodes that I really, really like. And I can't tell you what they all are yet, but the Courtney Cave episode was fantastic. The alien one I really, really enjoyed. You'll see why. You got to hang in there till the end, but you'll understand why when you watch it. There's a couple other episodes. In fact, there's one where we look into the Culper spy ring of George Washington. And one of the big mysteries is who is the female agent that worked with the Culper spy ring. And that episode was fantastic. But one of the things that was great about it is our tipster who gets me into the episode is a former CIA spy by the name of Valerie Plame. Valerie Plame was outed back in, I think, 2002 by the Bush administration because her husband wrote an article in the New York Times that basically said the premise for the Iraqi war was BS, that there were no weapons of mass destruction. And it turns out he was right. But they were upset about that, so they wanted to get some payback by outing Valerie as a CIA spy, and she lost her job.
Wow.
So she has.
So anyway, she's a wonderful person. And what's interesting is she is now running for a position in Congress down in New Mexico where she lives as a representative there. And I think she would be fantastic. She's obviously very intelligent. She's very savvy, and she's very passionate. So I wish her well. And if she gets elected, I think she's going to do good things.
Oh, definitely. So one of the topics you've talked about before, and I remember, I don't know if it was an interview or an episode of something where the Narragansett runestone, where it had went missing after it was on your show.
Right.
Did I read somewhere recently that was returned?
Yes, it was. And actually, if you want to read about it and see some photographs, go to my blog, scottwolteranswers.blogspot.com, and just go in the search bar and just type in Narragansett. It'll come right up.
Awesome.
But yes, it was turned over by the person who took it out of the water. And it was basically in storage for about 1.5 years. And during that time, I was given the opportunity to study it without waves, crashing over it every time I'd been there in the past. And it was really, really helpful. And I wrote about that both on my blog and in my new book. I have a chapter that I put in all my books, update on artifacts and sites. And if something new has happened with an old artifact that we'd already talked about, I bring the readers up to date in that chapter. And that Narragansett runestone is a fascinating artifact. It's got a hooked X. It's definitely connected to the Templars. And someday over a beer, I'll tell you the story of how it was recovered. I can't do it in public, though.
Yeah, that's definitely a story I would like to hear.
Now, obviously, I know what that artifact is. Clearly, I know what it is. But for those of us who are listening, that are listening and wondering, well, what is that they're talking about? Can you give us an idea?
Yeah, I can give you a quick synopsis. Well, the Narragansett runestone is a 9-rune inscription. Rune meaning like as in Scandinavian runes. That also has a hooked X. The hooked X is, if you followed my work, I actually trademarked the hooked X phrase, and that symbol is used only in Freemasonry and in medieval Templarism, although I will be introducing some older examples in my new book, which I'm not going to give away yet because it's one of my big reveals, but it's the origin of the hooked X. That's why the title of the book is Cryptic Code of the Templars in America, Origins of the Hooked X Symbol. And it's one of the big reveals, and it's unbelievable. But it is also where I believe the Knights Templar got this symbol and used it in secret as one of their most sacred symbols. But that stone, it's on a large boulder about 6 tons that is just off the coast of Narragansett Bay on the west side. And it's been known about for over a century. And It was taken out of the water back in 2014 by the guy that owned the property immediately adjacent to it. And it's a long story, but someday I'll be able to tell that story. But it was recovered. He called it in. Law enforcement took it back, and they really did a good job.
Now, I'm kind of curious. You keep mentioning the new book. When is that going to be out for those that are listening that are curious?
Well, it's at the printer right now. It was supposed to be out now, but we had some delays with editing and some other things. But I say in a couple of weeks I should have books in my hands. Now, the official publication date is September, but I will have books before that. And if anybody's interested in a signed copy, they can go to my website and order one. It's www.hookedx.com, spelled HOOKEDX.com.
I will definitely be reaching out for that.
Yeah, you got that written down? Okay, very good.
So, and I know we're jumping back and forth here on all kinds of different topics.
Oh,
but
that's all right. I'm having fun.
It's kind of what we do here.
So, outside of the Roanoke episode, another episode that really stuck out to me was the when you were in Western Tennessee talking about the Cherokee and Hebrew connection.
Right.
And that's been a topic that's been in my family's just wheelhouse of discussion for years, even before this episode aired. Do you have anything else on that? It's been a while since I've been able to actually watch the episode, but I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch soon.
We actually, in the first 3 seasons, we did 2 episodes that dealt with the Bat Creek Stone, which was an artifact found in 1889 in a Cherokee Indian mound, burial mound, and by the Smithsonian when they were doing their mound excavation program, basically digging in these old burial mounds and sanitizing anything that might suggest a different narrative. And the reason I say that is because when they found the Bat Creek Stone, they initially thought that it was a Paleo-Cherokee inscription. Therefore, it wasn't a threat to the narrative, and they published it in 1894. Now, in 1970, it was realized that it wasn't a Paleo-Cherokee inscription. It was Paleo-Hebrew. And it dates back to the 1st century. Well, my God, we sure can't have that.
Absolutely not.
So they immediately, and the thing about it is that's so fraudulent is this. Okay, the Smithsonian Institution is, everybody thinks of them as our nation's museum, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ultimate in scientific, investigation, and boy, they're going to get to the bottom of it, and it's going to be right? The Smithsonian's got this gold star name.
Absolutely.
However, why is it that when it was realized that this artifact that had been sitting ignored in their archives because it was Paleo-Cherokee, suddenly one of the top Semitic scholars in the world at that time, Cyrus Gordon, said it was 1st century Paleo-Hebrew? You would think that our nation's museum would say, oh, that's interesting. A scholar says that it's not what we thought. We should look into this, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, isn't that what you'd expect?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
That's not what happened. They immediately dismissed it as a fake, blaming one of their own field agents, a guy by the name of John Emmert, who's been dead now, at that time for almost a century, right?
Yeah, can't come to defend himself there.
Well, no, he can't. And what was interesting is that when we did the episode, I pointed out that John Emmert, who was a Civil War veteran of the Confederacy, who was wounded twice and is now buried in an unmarked grave, was a constable. A constable is a guy that works in law enforcement, basically a cop, right?
Yeah.
And he was a brother Freemason. I can tell you that I know they vet very carefully anyone who becomes a Freemason because I've been through the process. I also know that they vet law enforcement officers, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is the guy that they're throwing under the bus nearly a century after his death, blaming him for carving the inscription. So after we did the episode, I wrote a blog. And for the first time in its history, the Smithsonian Institution responded on my blog with an official statement saying that that I was wrong, that the artifact is a hoax, and it was done by John Emmert. So I responded back to them and I said, "Oh, really? Well, let's think about this for a sec. Your field agent is the guy that you're accusing of carving and planting this artifact. Well, if you guys are so incompetent to hire somebody that is that awful, then you also, and you're going to call into question the Bat Creek Stone dig, then you have to call into question all 200 digs that John Emmert did.
Yeah.
And if you're so incompetent that you hire field agents like him, what about the rest of your field agents that did all the other digs? Now you're calling all of your digs into question. Is that what you want to do?" So they didn't respond at first. A couple days later, they sent another statement, and they took John Emmert out of it.
So a lot of this is new to me. I'm going to be honest, like especially hearing about the resistance to admit what is and what isn't. It almost feels like, and I'm a conspiracy theory nut, so it almost feels like there's definitely a conspiracy theory from someone trying to keep these things from going public. Do you have? How deep does it go?
Yes, there is a conspiracy. Absolutely. And I can tell you that there are entities within our government that don't want the narrative to change. The Roman Catholic Church absolutely doesn't want anyone to know about the. Do you think they want to see the Templars in any way lionized? My God, they were the ones that put them down,
right,
arrested, tortured, and burned them. So absolutely, and a lot of people don't realize this, but for a long time, the biggest funder of the Smithsonian Institution was the Roman Catholic Church. So obviously, there's been some influence there, in my opinion. But look, if you want to argue whether or not there's a conspiracy or not, then answer the question: why is this stuff going on?
Yeah. Why
is the Smithsonian Institution, that is supposed to be world renowned, acting like they're trying to hide something? I mean, tell me. I'm persona non grata. They won't do anything with me. I'm the guy that's validating the runestone. Why is that a problem? You tell me. I don't know.
That's that narrative story we've been talking about.
Yeah, and I don't know
absolutely.
the Smithsonian personally, but I don't think they're going to reply to me.
No.
Yeah, just a wild guess.
Yeah, wild guess, but you know what? Who cares? I mean, I don't need their approval.
Right.
Look, the facts are inconvenient things for people that are trying to control the narrative.
Right.
And that's why they attack me. They can't attack the evidence because the evidence is irrefutable. But you know what I've learned? Sooner or later, the truth always bubbles to the surface, and this will come out. The truth will come out, and I hope it happens in my lifetime. But if it doesn't, it will come eventually. I'm certain of that.
Well, eventually there's going to be some piece of evidence that just can't be refuted. For years...
The runestone can't be refuted. They can't refute it.
Yeah, true.
I mean, if you talk about it intelligently, and think about this, guys. I'm going to teach you something about forensics that you never knew, but as soon as I say it, you're going to go, wow, that makes sense. And the reason it makes sense is because it's true. And here it is. And I'm using the runestone as one example. If all of the evidence, there is voluminous evidence in multiple disciplines that are all consistent with authenticity of the runestone being a 14th century artifact. If all of the evidence in runology, language, runes, dialect, geology, history, if everything fits, okay? And they're all consistent with authenticity, how can there possibly be any factual evidence to support the contrary?
I mean, there's not.
By definition, it's impossible. It cannot exist because it didn't happen, right?
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I didn't want to go, wow, that makes sense.
All the arguments against the runestone, like the language and this was modern, that stuff's all gone now, right? Everything has been proven to be medieval. So now you're left with, well, Olaf Ullman was a stonemason. No, he wasn't. He was a carpenter. Okay, I went to his hometown in Sweden, and I saw some of the buildings that he helped build. and the buildings in Minnesota that he built. He was not a star. That's a lie. So all the stories about this and the deathbed confession is complete nonsense. There is no factual evidence. And how could there be? Because it's not a hoax. It's absolutely 100% real, and it is the most, in my opinion, important historical artifact in the history of this country, and it's even more important than even I thought. And yet we treat it like garbage. It's amazing.
I mean, it's with it being true and everything you found out. I mean, it is a land claim, so that changes history completely.
Oh, absolutely, it does, and it predates any subsequent land claims that anybody else put out. And if you stop and think about it, what's interesting is most land claims, they will say we claim this land in honor of King so-and-so, right?
Yes.
Runestone doesn't have that. Why? Because the Templars weren't going to make a claim in honor of a king. Are you kidding me? They sure as hell weren't going to make it in honor of the Pope, right?
Absolutely not.
So, but there's more to that as well. And the final piece to the Kensington runestone puzzle came to me when I was initiated as a Yorkite Freemason. In a particular degree, all 8 numbers that occur on the Kensington runestone within the inscription occur in this degree in sequence.
Really?
Really. And it starts with 8 Goths and 22 Northmen. And 8 and 22 are very, very important sacred numbers to the Templars. And I think I've gotten to the bottom of that well. But at the end of the day, what I learned, and I realized, and it only happened after I had taken my obligations and I had gone through the degrees, that I now understand that a large part of the inscription is allegory, and parts of it are real. And it's just like our Masonic degrees. There is real historical truths preserved within them, that's veiled within allegory, symbolism, and code, and so on. And the difficult part within the degrees is figuring out what's real and what's not. Just like the runestone, but I now think I have it figured out. And if you stop and think about it, it's a beautiful, brilliant system. I mean, paper can burn, right? And degrade over time. Rocks can be broken and degrade over time. But as long as there are people that are performing these rituals and they get passed on from generation to generation, the real historical truth embedded within the rituals lives on forever. It's brilliant. Yeah. It's just absolutely brilliant.
Definitely.
And that was one of the big reveals that I will talk about in the book, and I think you'll be fascinated and understand that this is why scholars haven't been able to figure it out. They've been trying to tell the Kensington runestone for over 120 years what it's supposed to be, instead of letting the artifact tell them what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm learning. Getting
well, thanks for letting me go on my rants here. I'm practicing my next lecture on you guys.
Oh no, I love it, because Tanner has introduced me to a lot of this stuff. Like I said, I am more of the supernatural alien side of things, and he's introduced me to a lot of history and these things that I had no idea about that you have done so much with. And I'm kind of curious, is there anything that you haven't investigated yet that you want to really investigate?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff, man. I mean, there's so much out there. But yes, there are some things that I would like to investigate. I would like to understand who was the culture that built Göbekli Tepe and then buried it 12,500 years ago. I mean, who did that? Who were those people? Were they part of a high culture that existed around the world prior to the flood or the melting of the continental ice sheets, which raised sea level hundreds of feet and displaced, most of the cultures that were living on the coastlines, because that's where all the food is? What is going on behind that story? I have an idea, but I want to bring that one to the world. There's a lot more work to be done on the Templars. We've come into some Templar documents with maps that the world has not seen yet, and I can't wait to bring those to the world. There are one of the people that I would like to shed more light on that I know quite a bit about is Leonardo da Vinci, the Grand Master of the true Templar tradition of his time. What this guy did was beyond brilliant. I mean, he's lionized as one of the greatest humans that ever walked the planet, and people still don't know the level of his greatness. There are some stories that we know that we're going to bring out. Those are just a few of them, but there's a lot more to do, and I hope we get a chance to do it.
I know I'm looking forward to several of those things you just brought up, but we're going to start wrapping up now. I just have a couple of things I want to bring up.
Sure.
I know at the end of every episode, you're always asking if anybody has any tips or anything they would like to show you to reach out. I personally am from Cairo, Illinois, so I'm right there in Little Egypt. So of course the Burroughs Caves is always one of those things.
We did an episode on Burroughs Cave.
Yes, and it was definitely another one of my favorite episodes. But there's something that's recently been brought to my attention, and I think it's kind of curious. It's called the Piazza. I think it's pronounced Piazza stone or
Don't
carving.
look at me.
It's in Alton, Illinois, and apparently it was originally found, I believe, during the Lewis and Clark expedition. And they were
I'm not aware of it.
They were stone carvings found in these caves around Alton, Illinois, which is right along the Mississippi. And to me, the artwork looks like it's Native American for the time, or at least that's what they're saying. But to me, the artwork looks almost Scandinavian. The inspiration came from Scandinavian artwork.
If you have any photos or a link you could send me, go ahead and send it to me. I'll take a look at it.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And then the other question I have, and I know this, I don't know how you'll react to this, but
is it about Atlantis?
It is not about Atlantis. I'm a huge fan of history just in general. So I do watch the Oak Island show. Have you ever been invited to go up there for any of that stuff? Because I know recently they found stones with glyphs and different drawings up there, and so I don't know if they've reached out to you before.
I've been asked to appear on Oak Island 3 times, and I've respectfully declined every time.
I mean, I can't say I 100% blame you because some of the things that they've presented have been kind of out there.
Yeah.
But
let's just say that I know a lot about what's going on there, and I declined for a reason.
Gotcha.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Understood. Just one of those questions I felt like I needed to ask just for my own sanity.
Yeah. I get asked about Oak Island almost every day. And I guess I will say this. I think if the brothers have proven anything, they've proven that there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about, and of course what they're going to do next season is they're going to go down the Templar road. I can tell you absolutely with 100% certainty, the Templars did not put their treasure there. The Templars, first of all, would never leave all their eggs in one basket. We just don't do that.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. And did it ever occur to anybody that maybe Oak Island is a decoy site? And if so, it has worked beautifully.
Yes. Isn't New Ross isn't very far from there, is it?
No, it's a little ways, but it's not too far.
Okay, because I know they've included the story from New Ross there before.
Yeah, they went to New Ross, and we went there, and they did the same thing we did. They went down the well, and I mean, you also have to understand, in television, it's entertainment, right?
Yeah.
And there are things that we do sometimes that I roll my eyes, when I do it. But I also understand that there is an entertainment element to it.
Right.
And, we can't forget about that. So I'm not going to criticize another show when I do the same thing sometimes. But the one thing that I will never do, ever, is I will never plant things. I will never lie to the audience. sometimes I'll give you an example. You're going to see an episode this season where I find a rock that has some copper in it, right?
Okay.
Where you see me find it is not where I found it. Okay. I found it off camera, but it was at that site. It just wasn't at that spot.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, in my mind, I'm okay with that because it's not like, we went online and found a copper specimen on eBay or went to a rock shop and bought one and planted it.
It doesn't change the story.
It doesn't change the story. Exactly. It's not bullshit. I'm sorry. God, I shouldn't say that. It's not BS, right?
Oh, no, you're fine. Trust me. We have worse.
Yeah. So you get the point.
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
I will never lie. I will never plant anything. We will never, we try not to do things that are stupid. I just can't look myself in the mirror. And if I can't look myself in the mirror, I'm not doing it.
And I have one last question for you before we wrap it up here. You say you're a sports fan earlier and you watch a lot of sports. Are you a Blues fan? Because we are right near St. Louis. Blues are apparently doing some things right now. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I would rather watch paint dry. I am a Wild fan. I'm a Twins fan. I'm a Vikings season ticket holder. I still play softball. I get out and skate now and then. I play touch football with my son's team. I live and breathe sports. I have no interest in the Blues. We're happy for you, but I think the Bruins are probably going to take you out. I hate to say it. But
after that last game.
They're really good.
Yeah,
after that last game,
it
was pretty bad, yeah.
So, and I got to tell you, I can't stand Boston and their precious little Red Sox. And their
well, you know what? We would get along perfectly then.
I just can't take it, man. I'm sorry. I can't take it.
Yeah, we'd get along perfectly then. Just you don't have to like St. Louis. Just don't like Boston.
Well, no, you know what? I don't have a problem with the Blues. They're in our division, so they're a rival. But if I had my druthers, I'm rooting for you guys over the Bruins. Absolutely. I just don't think you're going to beat them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll take that. That's understandable.
I've been saying that since the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know what, though? You guys, if this is your squad, you got to believe anything can happen. And, it isn't over until that last second is ticked off the clock, man.
You're right. You're right. I've seen crazier things happen.
Right to the end.
Well, see, I'm a Penguins fan personally. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
you guys
my girlfriend's
beat us
from Pennsylvania.
The 91 Stanley Cup, and I was at that game, and I remember you guys had Mario Lemieux, and I hated your team with a passion. And in the final 2 minutes, as once the cold, dark cloud of reality came down over me, I stood up and I clapped and I said, "This is a great team with one of the best players in the history of the league.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, you kicked our rear ends."
Yeah. So
we clapped for you guys because you won it in our house.
Yeah,
you don't remember that, do you?
I remember Mario Lemieux. He was one of my favorite players, but I don't get to keep up with sports.
81, I think.
Yeah. So before we wrap it up, you want to give us a small little preview for the episode tomorrow?
Tomorrow night is one of my favorite episodes, and we just call it, I think, Alien Artifacts. But I go down to Mexico and I investigate a site where a group of guys said they found some artifacts. So I look at the artifacts. I go to the site where they found them. Some really cool things happen. And then I look at some other artifacts. And all I can say is there's a twist. So stay with it till the end. And I think I will tell you this: if there was ever an episode that begged for a follow-up, this is it.
Oh, I'm ready. DVR is set.
And we would love to follow up with you later on sometime down the line and talk about this stuff. Once you're able to, speak freely about it, because especially when it comes to aliens, now you're really dipping into my territory, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, after you watch the episode, I'll be happy to talk with you. And I know you're smart guys. Anytime you want to get me nailed down, you talk to my agent, Janet Wolter.
Absolutely.
Oh, I definitely will. I've got her on speed dial right now. She's been a blessing.
No, she'll get it all figured out. She plans everything for us, and she does a great job.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a true honor to have you on here and talk about this stuff.
Oh, thank you, guys. And I'm sorry I got a little spun up, but sometimes I do, and apologize for some colorful language. But thanks for having me. I really appreciate the support.
Oh, not a problem. And don't worry about the cursing. Like I said, we have a very varied show, too, and some of them get a little salty. I won't lie to you. We try to avoid politics and a couple things, but whenever we get going, we get going pretty good.
No, I hear you, man. And, as a Freemason, one of the tenets that we have is we avoid politics and religion when we talk, when we're in lodge, and we focus on the things that unite us as brothers and not what divides us. So I'm with you all the way, and that's my tenet, too.
Absolutely. So tomorrow, Tanner, Travel Channel, America Unearthed, Aliens. This sounds incredible. Make sure you guys tune in to check that out. Scott, once again, thank you so much, sir. And we will definitely talk with you again about this next episode and other stuff down the line. Thank you so much.
That sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you again, sir.
All righty. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Hope I didn't cut him off there at the end because I feel like I did. But that's okay. That's okay because
that interview went great.
I'm sure he started talking to us anyway. Anyway, no, we do definitely want to thank Scott Wolter for being on the show. That was incredibly informative, and my brain's gonna have to catch up to the audio. I might have to listen to it once or twice because that dude was intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah. I also wait till he's off the show before I say that dude, so as to not ruin the illusion that he thinks we're smart people.
Hey, you know what? Let him think it.
Let him think it. All right. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. And once again, absolutely check out Travel Channel tomorrow, America Unearthed. I've seen a couple episodes. It is a fascinating show. This is the kind of stuff I know, Tanner, is your bread and butter. I'm starting to get into it a little bit more because I can only take so many shows about ghosts.
It's definitely it's a nice break from the normal.
It is. And God bless Scott Wolter for not going just ham on some of those.
He handled it great. I brought up. I was a little worried bringing up Oak Island because I know how some people react to it.
Just for the record, whenever I mentioned Atlantis, Tanner gave me a giant cut to throat. Do not bring up Atlantis. But you know what? Next time we have Scott Wolter on the show, I'm going to ask him about it.
Oh, yeah, I definitely have topics of Atlantis. That's just a whole different subject that would take another hour.
Good, we'll do it. All right, thank you guys for tuning in to this special edition of I Want to Believe. We're going to be back tomorrow with the Hype Train. That's Jesse, Asa, and Trevor, and I don't know what they're hyping, but it's going to be good. So you guys stay tuned for that. And then, of course, Wednesday, Pro Wrestling Unscripted, Thursday After Dark, and we'll see you guys again on the next one. Remember, Podzilla1985.com if you want to catch up on the older episodes. Patreon.com/Podzilla1985 if you want to support us. And Facebook.com/Podzilla1985 if you would like to interact with us. If you have questions for people like Scott Wolter or Paul Blake Smith, who was on the show once, or Jeff Hardy, or Veronica Taylor, or the myriad of celebrities we've had on here lately. Once again, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one. Later.